Descendant, the enemy has modified the Algus technology and are using it to emit inversion energy. It appears they are defending the gate with it. The weapon contains ancient arcane. The structure on the ground draws and releases this. Descendant, I will show you the properties of the arcane stored within the weapon. You can disconnect it. Energy as a personal barrier. We must find a device with the same arcade properties. You need to attack that device from above to penetrate the inverted energy. Separation layer, which uses inversion energy. It has a large output, which requires processing of tens of billions of units of data per second. According to the scan results, the structure that appears to be a computing device is full of Valgus artificial brains. This is how they are processing all that data. Continue to insert Valgus artificial brains into the computing device, Descendant. If you overload the device, the veil will be neutralized. The enemy commander is using the base separation veil as a shield. If you overload the computing device, you can create an opening to attack the commander directly. Superb!
Hello everyone. So, is Valby any good for invasions? The answer is not exactly no, but not 100% yes as well. And let me explain what I mean by that. So as you saw me, I managed to complete one of the invasion 2 times with perfect score. Perfect, I mean gold, the gold timer, although it was almost barely gold timer. And the other one I was late with 2 or 3 seconds for the gold timer. Now, I'll show you the build and what I used and why I think that she's, you know, not as efficient as other Descendants, but she could be improved to do at least 90, maybe 95 or even 100% of the evasions with gold timer if you play her correctly. But let me start with this. The reason why I wanted to make this video is specifically for Valby is because on the forums, like the Steam forum and on Reddit, many of the people, like before the nerf, were complaining, and even now, that they cannot complete the invasions. And I'm not saying this to be rude or just because I want to brag or to put the other people down that cannot complete the missions. I just genuinely don't understand what they mean when they say that they can't complete the invasions, because I haven't seen a single person like when they say that they cannot complete the invasions to specify exactly what they mean by that. They cannot complete them with the gold timer and therefore they say that they cannot complete them at all, or they really can't complete them at all, because you have 30 minutes to complete these invasions. So the gold timer, depending on the mission, is between 4.5 minutes to maybe 9 minutes or something like that. But then you have the silver timer and the bronze timer, and the bronze timer I think is half an hour. So you have half an hour to complete the whole mission. That's plenty of time to complete the mission. And the only thing that I understand when people say they cannot complete the invasions is that they either cannot complete them in half an hour, or they just die 8 times in a row and they outright fail the mission. And when they say they cannot complete the invasions, I understand it as this, not as they cannot complete them with the gold score, because no one ever specifically said that they cannot complete it with the gold score. They just all say they cannot complete the invasions. And this is the point of this video. Like, even with Valby, you can complete the invasions. She's not a bad character by any means. She's just not as efficient as some other Descendants like Bunny, Vaesa or Glay. But she's not a bad, and there are room to improve her to, if Nexon decide to just buff her slightly, she can be as efficient as Bunny, almost as efficient as Bunny, but she would be able to do 100% of the invasions with gold timer consistently. That's what I mean. But anyway, let me go straight into the build and what I used for Valby. But I have to warn you that the investment, the current investment for Valby is exactly the same investment that you have to do for Glay, and they both require the same resource, the same resources, the same time, and to build them. So you can argue that why should I build Valby then, because if I put the same time and effort and resources to build Glay instead, I will achieve better results. And I'm not here to argue with that. Right? That's correct. If you invest the same time, effort, and resources in Glay, you will achieve better resources. Now, having said that, let me explain the build. We are using the supply moisture, and this is a must to use it for Valby. I think this is her best Transcendent mod, specifically for high damage. If you want the most damage out of Valby, this is the module that you have to use. And what this module does is that when you are staying on water, it increases your skill critical hit rate and your firearm critical hit rate. Her base skill critical hit rate is 5%. Now it shows 17% because I already have all the skill critical hit modules applied to her, and I have skill critical hit rate on the reactor. Otherwise, it's just 5%. So, in order to achieve high skill critical hit rate with her, you need the supply moisture. And why build her on skill critical hit rate instead of something else? Because the current way the game is designed is designed around high DPS, and the highest DPS in terms of skill and weapons is building critical damage. So you need to be able to crit both on your skills and on your weapons. There are exceptions like Glay, for example, which cannot crit on her skills because her base value is skill critical hit is very low, but she is an extremely good platform for weapons. So if your weapon can crit, she's much better. But because Valby has such low base value of skill critical hit rate, you need to use this module to increase it further. So as you can see, if I use her first ability, it creates water. Now I'm sitting on the water. And if we take a look now, I have 84% skill critical hit rate. And on the weapon, I have 78% skill critical hit rate when I'm on the water. Now there's no water, so the value went back to 40%. And I will have a link in the description below of another content creator that explains how the critical hit for skill and the weapon works in the game. And the point is that you don't need more than 75%. There is sort of cap on 75% skill critical hit rate and weapon skill critical hit rate. And that's because mobs and bosses have critical hit resistance. And his test shows that almost all, like half of the Colossus have 20% skill critical hit resistance, and some of them have between 25 to 27 skill critical hit resistance, with the exception of Gluttony, which has 80% skill critical hit resistance. Which means that anything above 75% skill critical hit rate or weapon critical hit rate is wasted. Now you saw that I have 85% with this, but really there's nothing you can remove, because for example if you remove this one, right, that gives you 65%, you will lose substantial damage, because this mod also gives you first you fall slightly below 75, it would be 68% skill critical hit rate, but then you lose 0.4x multiplier on the skill critical hit damage. So I think that this build is the best to get, you know, the highest possible DPS on Valby. Now with that being said, the modules that I'm using are of course supply moisture, increased HP and increased def, they go by default. Then emergency measure for crit hit rate, front lines for crit hit damage and crit hit rate. This also gives you crit hit damage. Then skill concentration for more crit damage. skill insight for critical hit rate. Then I'm using focus on non-attribute and focus on dimension. Also skill expansion for range and skill duration. The skill expansion you need so that the water that you create is like has increased size. And what that does is that, you know, if you have the increased size, there is more room for you to move, right? And you have to stay on water, because when you shoot, as you can see, all your hits will be critical. And your skills will crit more consistently. So when you play against bosses, for example, you use your first ability, and then you can just move, position yourself, right, and still shoot at the boss while still standing on the water. So for that, it's better to have more range. Now, this one, the focus on non-attribute, gives you non-attribute skill power, just skill power, right? This gives you skill power modifier. What the modifier does is that if you take a look, for example, at her third ability, there is a waterway, and then it says continuous damage, skill power multiplied by 130%. This 130% is the modifier of that skill. So any skill power, this is skill power, there's no modifier, right, is multiplied by this 130%. This modifier, the skill power modifier, adds 68% to this 130% here. So instead of 130, it will become 198%. And then all the raw skill power that you have will be multiplied by this 198%. Here, for example, the reactor gives you 11,000 skill power. This 11,000 skill power is scaled by this 77% is added to that 11,000, and then this final value is multiplied by 198%, and that's how the damage is calculated. Then this final value, the damage, like after all the calculations, like after the multiplication of the 198%, if you crit with this final value, this value would be further multiplied by your skill critical hit damage. And that's how you take most out of the damage, the skill damage possible on the Descendants. If they have good way to build them around skill critical hit damage, this is the way how you can maximize their skill DPS. Then for the reactor, what you need, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, is skill critical hit rate and skill critical hit damage on the reactor. And then you want this non-attribute and dimensional skill power. But it has to be for the weapon that you use. Again, because for this build, for the Valby, you need a weapon, fully built weapon, and fully built Valby. Because you won't be able to kill the boss only with skills. You will have to use a weapon. So because you will be using a weapon all the time, you need the reactor to be for that weapon that you will be using. Because, let me show you now. If I use my first ability, now I'm on water, then I'll use my fourth ability, which gives me the highest damage. Okay, now let's take a look at the ticks. It's almost 300k per tick, right? Let's just wait until it expires so that I can repeat this. Okay, now this is for Divine Punishment. If I mount Divine Punishment, now I have 60% more skill power. Let's test it now, okay? So, if I use my third ability now, the ticks are almost 500k. That's 200k power loss if you don't use a reactor for your weapon. And as you saw me on the video, I was killing the bosses with Thunder Cage, and my reactor is for Divine Punishment. This is the reason why I'm saying that it's not unlikely that you would be able to do most of the invasions with gold score if you min-max everything. And by min-max I mean the weapon, Valby, and then the reactor. And again, my recommendation for weapons, specifically on Valby, specifically for such bosses like the infiltrations and the invasions, because there's really no difference between these bosses. It's just that the invasions, they have more mechanics, more defenses, HP and so on. But Greg Reverse Fate would be better weapon, in my opinion, because of the unique ability. First, the Greg's Reverse Fate, maybe I can take it if I have it here. Let me see. Yes. Okay, so let's take a look at it. I think it has the same value. Yeah. Okay, it has slightly less crit damage than Thunder Cage, but it has the same crit hit rate. And it has significantly more weak point damage, which means like the Greg's Reverse Fate, I mean. So if you build the Greg's Reverse Fate because of the unique ability, this will give you way more damage than Thunder Cage, and especially if you aim at the head of the boss, right, because it's a weak point, you will be doing significantly more damage than with Thunder Cage. And then if you get a reactor that is for Greg's Reverse Fate, like this reactor, right? If you get a reactor like this, but for Greg's Reverse Fate, and you have Greg's Reverse Fate completely built and min-maxed, I think that you would be able to do at least 95% of the invasions with gold score all the time. And the rest of the 5%, let's say that you can't complete with gold score, maybe you won't be able to complete them with gold score from the first time, but eventually you will be able to complete them. Now, does it mean that Valby is worth it? No. I'm not here to BS you and tell you that, you know, just because if you min-max everything you would be able. Again, if you min-max Glay needs exactly the same resources as Valby, right? Now, I'm not saying, and you can use Thunder Cage on Glay, and if you use Thunder Cage on Glay, you would still be able to kill the bosses faster than with Valby. I think even with Valby and Greg's Reverse Fate, if you use Glay with Thunder Cage, you would still be outperforming Valby. So in that regards, Valby is not worth it if you want to build the Descendant specifically for efficiency, right? But if you like playing Valby, and if you like Valby more than other Descendant, then that's not a bad option, right? She can do the content in the game. She's just not as efficient as other Descendants, because it will take you just more time. The reason why she's not so efficient is because of her skill powers. If you take a look, for example, her first ability is not bad. I mean, it's almost 500%, which is decent. But this one is 130%. Right? The third ability of Bunny is 250%. And when I built Bunny for skill critical hit, I can do 1.4 millions on crit with Bunny, whereas I'm doing 500k, almost 500k on crit with Valby. That's a huge difference. That's almost 900k difference. And I think that if they just buff this skill power, specifically on her third ability, and make it the same value as on Bunny, she will be comparable to Bunny, but she still won't be able to kill the bosses as fast as Bunny, but almost there, because you know the ticks of her third ability, like these ticks. You see these ticks? They are slower than the process of Bunny when Bunny is sprinting. But the difference is not something, is not tremendous, right? So I think that she would still be able to kill the bosses to comparable level as Bunny. Maybe let's say 30 seconds or 1 minute difference, something like that. But now it's like 2 minutes difference or maybe 3 minutes difference, you know. So yeah, I think that's the only problem with Valby. If they just buff her skill power, specifically on her third ability, she'll be extremely good. So for Thunder Cage, I'm using this specific setup. Again, I already explained this setup in my my last 2 videos, so there's no reason to go through every mod, explain why it's there. You can just copy this, but again, if you want really to min-max this and have consistency in performance, then don't use Thunder Cage, use Greg's Reverse Fate, just build Greg. And you can basically use the same build for Greg. Another thing that I want to mention is that because, and this will be the last thing, because Valby is less efficient at her current state than other top descendants like Vaesa, Bunny and Glay, you will need more time to kill the boss. And just because of that, just because it will require you more time to kill the boss, so how you kill the boss is that you will have to, you know, constantly cast this, then shoot at the boss, evade his mechanics, then maybe you can create more water, you know, and just keep shooting at the boss and evade the mechanics. And the moment you see that your water is running, you just recast your first skill, and whenever your first skill comes out of cooldown, you want to use it and hit the boss, because the burst damage is quite significant and then it ticks, you know, so that's not bad damage. And at the meantime you have to shoot, you have to reposition yourself and try to be on water again, you know, so that you can crit consistently with the weapon. And just because you need to do so many things, right, it will take you more time to kill the boss. And because it will take you more time to kill the boss have more time to do their BS, like do their mechanics, shoot at you. So yeah, you will need just more skill to play as Valby if you want to achieve the same result as Bunny, Vaesa or Glay. It's just what it is. So it will be more difficult for you to complete the mission with gold score, but it's not impossible. It would be more difficult with Valby than with other descendants. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'm out.